Welcome to the February Q&A.
We're back.
That should be a silent R in that word. Nobody says February. It's
Yeah.
just impossible.
Always a tough one to spell because of that.
It's just they should just declare it silent. Stresses me out every time I have to say it.
We
All
can
right.
declare it silent. It's silent.
Feel like I'm not articulate anymore when I have to say the word February. All right. Well, what have we got? We asked a
Um,
question to everyone, didn't we? On
yeah,
this
yeah. We
one?
asked we asked some fun questions this morning, then we got a lot of fun responses. Which ones are we going to
The
discuss?
one I figured that we should talk about today is someone asked us to ask the community if they lost a friend since having a baby, or have they lost a friend over their parenting choices? And you know the answer is yes, because in the women in my postpartum group, it's a common thing. So I just thought I would share what some of those responses were.
Well, first of all, has that happened to you?
Oh, let me think about that. No, never happened to me. As rad as I am, radical. I mean, and by many people's perspectives, I'm sure. No, it's never happened to me. But I think I would almost say I pride myself on having such authentic friendships that my friends and I have a genuine respect for each other. So it's kind of unfathomable to me. And my family is the same way. We're all a lot on the same page, but we have a lot of respect for how we live our lives. So no, it hasn't happened to me. However, I do feel for friends who have babies at different times. You can imagine that, right? I mean, you had them young. You had kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
No, what do you mean?
like when let's say best friends get married and have children years from each other.
Oh,
I
oh,
think that's
oh.
I feel for both of them
Yeah.
because it's isolating to both of them. I think that can happen. I still can't think of a friendship where that happened with me, but I no, it have you lost a friend over any of your decisions? I can't imagine that too easily with you either. I don't know why I
No,
just no, right?
no, I have not. I think, maybe acquaintances that could have become friends, maybe possibly didn't, but I can't even really think of a scenario like that. There's nothing that sticks out in my memory as like, oh gosh, that was a division, that was a dividing issue between us, and we could have been friends, and now we can't. But I also don't talk about those things with people who I don't think already align with me.
That's a good point. That's true.
So that's an easy way of avoiding that. Um,
And Trisha, things were way less divisive when we had our children. We each had our
yeah.
first 20 years ago. Almost for me, almost. But yeah, so what do you think are the most common responses we got? Like 50% of them were over one thing, obviously. You know what that is.
Yeah, the V word. I was actually just
Vaginas. No.
that the other V word.
Yes, the
Um,
other B
I
word.
was actually just going to say the only time I can think of it even becoming an issue was when we had a measles outbreak in our community, and I live in a small town, and they were going to close the school, or they were going to remove the children from the school for 3 weeks, of the children who were not vaccinated. And so then it was going to become known to everyone in the community who vaccinated and who didn't. It didn't end up happening, but I do remember that being like, oh gosh, who's on whose side, and
Yeah.
what's going to happen here, and how to navigate that.
Yeah.
But yes, I can see that is the most divisive topic between family, friends, acquaintances,
I think it's
everybody,
important.
the internet,
I think
everybody.
I might have mentioned this before, but I think it's important to tell everyone that things are so deeply cultural. And when you're a young adult, you don't realize it at all because you haven't lived long enough as an adult to know how cultural things are. But the most popular show in the 70s was The Brady Bunch. I'm sure everyone still has heard about it because it's such an iconic TV show.
Can I
And
just say something about that?
yes.
I have never watched a single episode of The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, well, you never watched like Friends or
I
Succession.
did watch
I mean, it's a
Friends.
that's a wonder that doesn't break up our friendship that you don't
Yeah,
know Friends.
I do know
You've never
Friends.
caught one Friends joke or reference I've ever made. You know you
I
haven't
don't know
watched
it
much
that
of
well.
Friends. You didn't watch much Seinfeld. You didn't watch Succession. No, if we can withstand that, Trisha, because that's not easy for me. Friends and recently Succession, they're musts. Friends is a must. Friends is a must.
I'll have to start it over.
All the generations after you are into Friends. So there's no
Oh
excuse.
yeah, my kids have watched it for
Of
sure.
course they have. Of course they
Yeah.
have. Okay. So What was I about to say? Oh, the Brady Bunch. They had an episode, and the scene has gone viral many times, and I think they horrifyingly have pulled the episode now from any reruns. There's an episode where all of them, all nine of them by the end, even Alice, gets the measles. So each kid comes home one by one by one. And of course, the whole thing, they set them all up in their sleeping bags on the floor. And Alice is kind of the nervous Nellie freaking out about it. And then there's this famous line where Mrs. Brady says, Alice, it's only the measles. That was what everybody said up until the 90s when more and more parents stopped vaccinating. And then I would even say the early 2000s, then they really changed the narrative. But that was how it was then. And everything changed around the early 2000s. And I just wish people understood that, like, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation did not grow up afraid of the flu, of the measles. It's just part of being a human being. And, so anyway, that all changed. Once they made a vaccine for it, then they started making people really terrified over it. And the risk of the disease themselves hasn't changed. Anyway, so vaccines was by far the most common answer. Like half of the, yeah.
And if people want more information on that, they can go into our Patreon and listen to our discussion on
Watch
vaccines.
our discussion.
Yes, watch and listen and take notes. There's lots of good information in there.
Yeah.
So okay.
All
What
right,
else?
so here was what they said. Okay, so the most common responses we received were those by far. What else would you guess if it's not vaccines? What would be your next best guess?
Vaginal birth versus C-section, unmedicated versus
Interesting.
medicated births.
Okay, I think there was one like that. So one of them says political views. Okay, that's not surprising these days.
Okay,
Very,
yeah.
very
I
divided.
thought we were only talking about health, but okay.
No, it said over your parenting choices, and political views might be
Okay.
might be including some other things. Um, One woman said, no, people already knew, and I don't mess around, and we don't share all our choices. That sounds like you and me talking.
Smart.
It's exactly what we would say, right? People already knew. I don't mess around, and we don't share all our choices. Yeah, why would you have to? Um, Lost friends over COVID. That's not uncommon, but gained new friends and made better connections. My neighbor friend stopped talking to me after she said she required people to be vaccinated before entering her home.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Sleep training. I don't know what direction that went, but sleep training. My sister-in-law won't speak to me because I had a home birth after C-section. She's an anesthesiologist, so I guess she knows better. Birthing at home was a hard pill for the majority of my family to swallow. That's someone else talking. Yes, my best friend of 13 years because she said I was killing my son for not vaccinating him. Homeschooling. Many said they broke it off with people who didn't discipline their children at all. A lot around discipline.
I
Uh,
can see that because that feels like it's going to influence your children. If they are hanging around undisciplined children and that's not your style, then that can actually feel like it rubs off and it actually can rub off on your children and make it harder for you to implement your rules.
yeah. And
For sure.
a couple of them said the other child was hitting their child and the parent wasn't doing anything about it. So that'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay. For breastfeeding for 2 years. Can you imagine losing a friend because of how long you breastfeed? I didn't lose a friend, but we had limited interaction when I was told I needed to wean myself from my baby.
That's talking about feeding.
I don't know. You need to wean yourself from your baby.
I
Like,
mean,
it sounds
like,
like they were implying the mother had an attachment issue with her baby.
right. Oof.
Me choosing my children over partying 100% of the time. Lost lots of friends. Deeply traumatic birth led to people not believing us. That sounds like an interesting story. Wonder what happened there. Yes, I lost two best friends. Again, that was vaccines. So moving on. Choosing a home birth. I thought I removed most of the choosing a home birth and not telling my friend because she was so fearful against home birth.
I can see that because that feels like a trust issue, but she still has a right to do that. And her friend needs to understand if she was making her feel uncomfortable about it, then
My very best friend from college, have been like sisters for over 30 years. She didn't even, I knew they were trying to conceive for the longest time. We couldn't be closer. And she didn't tell me that she was pregnant until she was around 20 weeks. And I didn't feel the least bit slighted, hurt, because she was so I don't want to misuse the word traumatized, but she was so wounded from years of not conceiving that she just was holding her breath that entire pregnancy and couldn't even tell her best friend till she was about 20 weeks that she was pregnant with twins. And she didn't sound joyful telling me. She was nervous, holding her
Nervous.
breath. I
Yeah.
didn't even think twice about feeling entitled to that information. It's not my business.
You're
So I
not.
can't even see if a friend home births and didn't tell me. I can't even see feeling hurt by that. I think it's so helpful in life when if more people recognize what is and is not their business,
Or
life
that it's
gets so
not
much easier.
personal. It's not
That's
personal.
right.
Her withholding that information is not personal against you. That is her own inner, inner challenge, inner work that she was doing because of her pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. This woman lost a friend because she herself declined the COVID shot while pregnant. I cannot imagine. I can't imagine friends like this. Who are these women that these women are friends with? You once told me about a friend, and I was like, how are you friends with a person like that? Right. And you said, well, it was convenient. And I said, well, that makes sense. We all need like the
Yeah, I mean,
nearby
there,
neighbor, but
friends fill certain spots in your life for certain reasons at certain times, and they don't have to last forever.
that's right.
Um, so yeah, just chapters, seasons. Friends can be
Seasons.
seasons too.
Oh, I lost a friend for not letting visitors come after he was born for about 7 to 8 weeks. Lost friends over that. Wow.
I have to think that all of these losses and friends are for the best. If
Sure, of
friends are leaving you
course.
over these small things, while it can still be painful and feel like a personal attack, these aren't the people you need in your life anyway. You don't need a lot of people in your life. You need a few good ones.
I'm a
And
big believer in turning over friendships throughout life, especially your young adult life, especially your teenage life. We have to turn over friends because we change and grow so much. And when people get sentimental, even about boyfriend girlfriend relationships, oh, but we've been together for this many years. Like, okay, well, what does that have to do with anything? It's okay, like you just said, for a season. That's okay.
yeah, if
Yeah,
you're a particularly nostalgic person, it can be harder because nostalgia is a powerful force. But you can only be so close to so many people. You can't have 20 deeply close friends. It's just
right.
our brains, we're not wired that way.
Well, having a
So,
child is like a great reset. We're about to form many new, wonderful, close friendships in the next years of our lives, and it might be time to let go of some others. But it's a shame when it comes through the form of judgment, not speaking to each other, hurt feelings. I've had a lot of women in the postpartum group suffer a lot because friends stopped speaking to them and a lot of nonsense. Sometimes destination weddings. Someone didn't go to a destination wedding or it was complicated because they had to bring their baby and they couldn't stay at the wedding the whole time. And friends are just like outraged at it. So, they'll understand once they have children. All right. That's it. Those are the
okay.
ones I selected.
Okay, fun.
All right.
Good. Hopefully
So
that was helpful.
yeah, well, at least I hope everyone understands they're not the only one going through some nonsense in their lives because most people are.
Yeah, and hold tight to the ones that don't judge you and respect you no matter what your choices are and let the others go.
All
Maybe
right.
they come back, maybe they don't. That's okay.
Let's get to our first question.
All right.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for all that you do for us moms and all of our much needed education. I'm calling because I've been hearing a lot of people that I've encountered, whether it's at church or just life in general or Instagram, that talk about their newborn infants being a quote unquote lazy feeder or lazy eater when they're just born in terms of their breastfeeding. First of all, it just sounds wrong to me. I think it's mean to call a newborn human being lazy because I just don't think that it's true. But is it a side effect of an epidural or some other issue like tongue tie or something? All three people that I've recently heard the term from say that their pediatrician has told them such, which obviously we know pediatricians don't know anything about breastfeeding. Anyways, I find it very offensive to call a newborn baby a lazy feeder, so wanted to run it past y'all. Thank you so much.
I couldn't agree more with her.
I am right there with you and her on this. No newborn is born lazy. That's just impossible.
They become lazy.
Lazy is something we develop over many, many, many years of lifestyle. You are not born lazy. Newborns are born with instincts. And if the baby is not, it's very easy to call a baby lazy because I guess you don't know what else to call them if they're struggling with feeding. And that's just like the rhetoric that gets passed on. One person says it and another nurse picks up on it and says it in the next room and says it, and then it just keeps going. And I guess maybe because it's a term that people can relate to. I don't know. I don't know why it got started. I don't know where it comes from, but it's totally inaccurate. There's not a lazy baby out there in this world. If they are having a difficult time feeding, it's because of some underlying reason. Maybe they were born early. Maybe they have jaundice. Maybe the mother's colostrum or milk is not in. Maybe they have tongue tie. Maybe they just haven't learned proper latch technique yet. Maybe they are semi-drugged from labor. That's a very common reason. There's more. There are more reasons, but it's definitely not ever laziness. So get that out of your head. And the remedy is skin to skin and obviously trying to figure out the underlying cause, probably with a lactation consultant.
You know what bugs me about it, other than the ridiculousness of it all and the judgment of it all, and labeling this innocent newborn as something, it's just so crazy. But what really bugs me about it is also it's so non-constructive. It's like, so now what? Yeah, like, oh,
It's dismissive. It's like, oh, sorry, don't have
they're
time to deal
lazy.
with
So
that.
now
So,
what? Like,
yeah.
what is even the point? Right. Let's just get to the
Eventually they won't
solution.
be lazy. I
Yeah,
don't
let's
know.
just get to the solution and not, let's skip all the labeling of things. Yeah, too many things are labeled,
Yes.
diagnosed. They're trying to turn it into like a diagnosis. It's just,
Well, that is not a diagnosis.
it's not intelligent. You know, it's not helpful.
It's
It's not
lazy,
intelligent. It's
actually.
lazy.
It's lazy. So
It's
turn
lazy.
it back on them. They're the
Ah,
lazy ones.
oh man.
That's a good one.
That was so good, Trisha. My God, we need so
Every
much
now
of
and
that.
then. Every now and then.
So good.
Hi, ladies. My name is Rachel. I'm currently 35 weeks pregnant with my first. When I got my anatomy scan at 20 weeks, I was told I had a low-lying placenta. It was about 4 centimeters away from my cervix. My OB at the time told me not to exercise or have intercourse for a month until they did another scan to make sure it moved out of the way. They also told me there was a chance the placenta could detach and then cover my cervix. I was obviously super scared and worried because I knew that placenta previa meant a C-section delivery. At the following scan, it had moved up out of the way. But my question is, can the placenta actually detach and cover the cervix, or was that just bad information from my OB? I have luckily since transferred to midwifery care. I actually transferred pretty late at 29 weeks, and I'm planning a home birth now. Your podcast and working with my midwife and doula has honestly changed my life, and I'm so excited to give birth now. Thank you for all you do. You're truly making such an impact in people's lives. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for all those nice words. That, Trisha,
Scare tactic.
I can't.
Major,
The
massive scare
placenta
tactic.
can detach and then
Okay,
reattach over the, and then
if your
reattach over the
placenta
cervix.
detaches, you're in trouble, right? If your placenta detaches, that's not a good thing. I mean, sometimes a very tiny, small, partial separation will mend itself, but it's not going to detach and move 4 centimeters down and cover your cervix.
And
that
float
is
around with the baby
fear.
and cover the cervix.
Can't do that.
Floating around. Of
No.
course not. I mean, you wonder if these providers who would make such a thing, if they know how any of this works. Like
I think that they
just
do. I think that they just are saying things to scare women to get them to, hurry up and get out of their office, or I don't know. I
if the
don't really know
placenta
why,
can detach,
but
obviously that's a crisis, a life or death crisis. This reminds me of when
and 4 centimeters isn't even very close to the cervix at all. I mean, that shouldn't even really be brought to a woman's attention. That should just be like,
there's a trend right now. I'm sure you
yes,
know that women
of
are,
course.
a very big percentage of women are being told they have placenta previa, and it scares the hell out of them the first 6-7 months of their pregnancies, brings them in for extra ultrasounds. They're scared to even sign up for a childbirth class sometimes because they think they're going to have a C-section. So what really gets me with placenta previa is they tell women at let's say like 16, 17, 18 weeks, they have placenta previa, and then they're like, let's check again in 2 or 4 weeks. How about checking at 35 weeks? How about checking when the belly actually goes from like growing, growing, growing to just huge, like massive change week? Anyway, it
Yeah, what's the
reminds
point?
me,
You're not going to do anything about it at 20 weeks. You're not going to do anything about it 3 weeks later. It doesn't.
it's conditioning her, and it's saying, just in case, let's get that C-section down. And it reminds me of, and I'm sure you remember this, but when one of my hypnobirthing couples years ago was told, they asked about delayed cord clamping, and the doctor said, what do you mean wait for it to stop pulsating? It doesn't stop pulsating. If it stops pulsating, it means the baby died. Right?
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
that ignorance, or is that doctor just that
I don't know. It's
horrible
hard
and
to,
unethical?
it's
No,
really
nothing is
hard to
forgivable.
understand.
There's no path to forgiving that provider. So they left
Yeah.
him, and they should have. There's no path for that being okay. Either he was ignorant or he was criminal.
Also, this doctor's advice to, what did he say? Don't have sex, don't
They love
exercise.
saying that. I think it's a power move. Don't have sex, I think, is a
Yeah, I
major
mean,
power move.
it must be
Yeah.
because it's not, that is not evidence-based. Just like, women were put on bed rest when they had bleeding and that didn't turn out to be helpful. You have your placenta is 4 centimeters from your cervix. It's not even significant.
I have had a couple of hypnobirthing clients share with me that doctors told them to not have sex the entire pregnancy. Can you believe that? It's
Wow.
such a power move. Like, you have the nerve to tell a couple when they can and cannot have sex. Like, get out of their bedroom. Obviously, if there was like something major going on, like an
Yeah,
infection
if
or
there was
bleeding,
a true reason, fine. If there was actually a medical indication to not, but generally that's not the case.
right?
I'm glad she changed providers. That's all I can say.
So we answered her question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
First off, I want to say thank you guys so much for this podcast. I absolutely love it. I have been binge listening to it since about June. I'm due in April, trying for a VBAC, which I'm super excited about. I was diagnosed with gestational hypertension at 31 weeks. And my midwife said that even if my blood pressure goes back to a normal range and stays there, that the diagnosis of gestational hypertension would stick, and that the MFM that I also see would likely still recommend an induction during week 37. And I know this is different for everybody, and there's a lot that goes into it. But if there's no other issues and everything else is fine and my blood pressure goes back to normal, would there still be a need to do an induction in week 37? Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing your answer. Oh, sorry, and my name's Jackie, and I am in Texas. Thank you so much for everything you guys do. Bye.
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to say here is she said, I'm trying for a
Yep.
VBAC.
She's not trying for a VBAC
Yes. She's having a VBAC.
or planning a
A
VBAC.
have back. That's what I call it.
Planning. She herself said she's so excited, so she can just say, I'm so excited to have my VBAC.
Yes.
Women are so afraid to say that because they think the disappointment will be greater if it doesn't work out that way. But that's not how it works.
You
So-
need to go into it with the intention that that is what's happening. And, come hell or high water, you're having a vaginal birth.
And you increase your odds.
Yes.
with that.
Yeah, you need to go into it with that belief.
Mhm.
So, yeah, makes no sense to me if her gestational hypertension resolves, which it very often does, because much of the time hypertension in pregnancy is actually just white coat hypertension. Not always, of course. There's real gestational hypertension. It does happen. But if her blood pressure is normal, certainly she should not be induced at 37 weeks. And if she's having a VBAC, induction is what we want to avoid at all costs. So she really wants to do everything she can to try to avoid being induced in order to improve her chances of the vaginal birth, because induction is an increased risk. Pitocin does increase the risk in VBAC. So we do want to try to stay away from that. And I would argue that even if she does have some hypertension, she should still try to avoid an induction at 37 weeks.
And I would say the recommendation for 37 weeks shows us, it indicates what I would consider a lack of credibility on those providers. Why 37 weeks? Isn't that random? If you're really monitoring a woman, then you can't decide in advance exactly the perfect time that she would need to actually be induced. You have to monitor her and see when she needs to be, but to plan in advance and then on top of it, 37 weeks.
That is actually a trend. Barbara Harper told us that it is becoming increasingly common in hospitals across the United States to move the induction from 39 to 37 weeks.
Well, they want to catch every possible woman who might have gone into labor spontaneously by 39 weeks. But that's day one of a baby being full term, and many babies will be in there 4 or 5 more weeks, and it's robbing the baby of something that the baby is entitled to. But I think that really they showed their hand when they said 37 weeks, just a random round number, day one of being full term, when they don't even know what her reading will be at that time. So for me, I would put, I'd have a lot more questions around that. Red flag.
Red flag. Okay, so that's a wrap on the regular Q&A for today. If you are with us in the extended version, which you can get on Patreon or by subscribing on Apple subscriptions, we are going to answer several more questions in the extended Q&A, specifically on topics related to postpartum depression and when to start medications, the risk of cervical tears and hematomas with induction, and respiratory distress or respiratory issues in newborns at home. If you are not with us in the extended episode, you will be getting quickies next.
Is it quickie time?
It is quickie time. Just always got to say, my favorite time.
My favorite time. It's quickie time. My favorite time. You do say that. I forgot how much you say that.
All right. I don't know. I just find the quickies really fun.
They are.
So I think it's a great part of our Q&As.
I agree. I remember the first time
agrees.
we did it, we got online and I was like, I just had the best idea. Do you remember that day? The first day we did them? You don't?
I don't.
I was like, I just had the best idea because we're getting all these questions and some of them are quick. Like we just got one saying, what's the difference between a doula and a midwife? So we'll call it quickies. You don't remember that? We made all these jokes about what quickie meant. Like all the innuendo was really fun for a couple months.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anyway, here we go. Okay, where do we want to begin? Did either of you have a doula at your birth? Starting with a personal one. Why not?
Yes to my first and no to my second. And I declined a doula who offered to attend my second one for free. And I still declined. I don't know why. I think because she talked a lot. I was afraid she wouldn't stop talking.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I did not have doulas at any of my 3 births.
You didn't even have a midwife at one of your births.
I did not have a midwife at one of them. I barely had a midwife at the second one, but I did have lots of friends at my first birth and who were all nursing students getting their masters in nursing. Some were midwives in training, some were NPs in training. So maybe that counts. But actually, they weren't in the room with me. So no, they were not playing doula role at all. I never even thought about having a doula.
I always thought they were in the room with you.
No, they were in the house with me.
Oh.
Maybe. I don't remember, to be honest. I don't remember who was in that room at the time of birth because I was so out of it and exhausted. They may have been in the room at the time of birth. They probably were because they were learning.
And you volunteered yourself.
Yeah. Why not?
That was really very nice of you.
You know, my midwife really was not in favor of all the people in my house. And maybe in retrospect, looking back, I should have listened to her because I did have about 20 people in the house. And that was probably way too many to have a peaceful, safe, birth environment. And she warned me against that. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And it was fine. But I did have a very long, exhausting labor. I've learned since then. Okay. Does your milk come in faster for your second baby? Definitely. Yes. If you could only ask one question interviewing a midwife or doula, what would it be? Probably different for midwife versus doula. I think the question I would ask a midwife is what her transfer rate is.
I think I would ask what's the most common reason for transfers as well. So we were both thinking around the same sort of thing.
Doula, maybe how many births they've attended.
My advice to my clients when it comes to a doula is it's great to have a doula with a ton of experience. I know a couple of doulas with phenomenal experience, and they are more valuable in that respect. But I do say the first thing you should do is hire the doula whose face you want to see when you go into labor. Just hire the one that you just feel like you love. When you meet someone and you just kind of fall in love with them, that's the one to hire. I think that really matters a lot. You should
So,
click. You should feel like you want to be held in her arms. If that, that it should just feel really good. What were you going to
so the
say?
question you should ask is, do you love me?
You should just feel like I'll be happy when this person walks in. I'll be happy to see them when I'm in labor. I didn't feel that way about my doula. She was fine, but I didn't feel anything emotional at all. She had a very, very thick boundary around her. And I even felt strange that I was going to be naked in front of her. I didn't really feel
Hmm.
very comfortable, but I hired her because she was the most responsive person. She was fine. But now that I know so many doulas, I'm like, oh God, they would have been amazing at birth because I love them so much. Anyway,
I like that answer. All right. Is it necessary to count the kicks every day in the third trimester?
I would never recommend that personally, but what's the right
Well, it
answer?
is recommended. It is
Yeah.
now more often recommended. That was not something I ever did or anything I ever recommended. I did recommend kick counts if you sensed that your baby was not moving as well.
Right.
Then yes, go, have something sweet, get some energy in your body, lay down, count your kicks, make sure they seem within normal limits. But on a daily basis, I would say no.
And I said no because it would just build so much anxiety. Do trust your intuition. I'm a big believer in getting quiet and asking if everything is okay. I'm really big on that. But the kick counts, if anyone had told me that, it would have made me absolutely neurotic.
I think you just need to know what's normal for your baby. Just try to be in tune with that. What feels normal, what feels abnormal. If it feels abnormal, then pay attention more
Right.
carefully.
Yeah.
So, do I need to stop breastfeeding before getting laser hair removal? No, no. Most everything can be done while breastfeeding. Everything that you think you can't do breastfeeding, you actually probably can. Does phototherapy require separation of mother and baby? Well, yes, yes, it does because the baby is in a separate space. So your baby can be next to you. They can bring a phototherapy bed into the hospital room with you
What's phototherapy?
for jaundice, the blue light.
Oh, yeah.
So if your
Yeah.
baby is getting the lights, then yes, it does require separation, but it doesn't have to be like across the hall in the nursery. They can bring they can bring the bed and the lights into the room.
We just heard a story from a woman, I think yesterday on Instagram, who said her baby was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 9 days with jaundice, and insurance didn't pay for the last day because insurance said the ninth day wasn't necessary. Remember how many women we've had on the podcast who said they always pushed the NICU stay another day or two in the end? They wouldn't like, quote, let the baby go home yet. In her case, insurance said the ninth day wasn't necessary and we're not paying for it. And now they're strapped with all these huge bills. But the bigger thing we were discussing was she said for her second baby, they took care of it in the room. So now she's got all this. She's upset thinking about what happened the first time around, needless to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. You might have to think about this one. What's something embarrassing that has happened to you in the last few weeks?
How often do these people think we get embarrassed? The last few
Okay,
weeks,
how about
I
months?
thought it was
I
like
don't
a
know.
lifetime question. The last few weeks,
I mean, I think mildly embarrassed. So not
I'm trying. I'm really trying. I
not
don't
like
feel
your most
embarrassment
embarrassing
terribly
moment of
easily.
your life.
Yeah, I don't get embarrassed terribly easily to begin with. So, that is hard
The
for
hard
me in
one.
the first place. Yeah, like if I don't know the meaning of a word, I'm not embarrassed that I don't know it. If I'm bump into someone, an old friend, and I've got no makeup on and I'm a mess, I'm not embarrassed. Like I just don't experience embarrassment that easily. But I truly don't. But I have experienced embarrassing things, of course, and I'm just having trouble thinking of it right now. So let me just think for a sec. Hmm.
I can think of something. It's not that embarrassing, but it's a little bit embarrassing. It's just sort of funny embarrassing.
You broke your glass water bottle again at the gym.
Uh, I I dropped it last night and it didn't break. I was so relieved.
Believe how much you dropped that thing. You're lucky it's not your phone. Okay, so
My phone I drop all the time and it breaks often too because I don't have a case on it.
of course not. Why
It's
would
got
someone who drops
got a
glass
crack,
all the
got a crack
time
on it right now.
have a case on her phone?
Okay,
Okay.
so I had just come from acupuncture and I had gone to Trader Joe's to do, some grocery shopping on the way home. And after acupuncture, you're like really chill, really zen. And so I was pretty zen. I was feeling very relaxed after this acupuncture session. I also probably had not eaten enough that day, so I might have been a combination of relaxed and spacey. And I was trying to quickly shop in Trader Joe's. And sometimes when it's really busy, I just don't take the cart with me because it's too hard to navigate. So I'll leave my cart and I'll go grab some things off the shelf and come back and put them in my cart. Well, because I was really out of it, I was grabbing things off the shelf and I was totally unaware that I was just loading up another woman's grocery cart with all my
Oh,
food. And she was
where
so
was
nice
she?
about it. She was probably doing the same thing, but she quickly kind of came back to her cart and she was like, tapped me on the shoulder. I didn't even realize at all. She tapped me on the shoulder and she's like, "Excuse me, ma'am, that's my cart." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And then I had to pick through because I'd put like 10 things in there.
That's a really good story.
And some of the
It's
things were the
funny.
same
And
that she
that
had.
is embarrassing. I'd be
So
embarrassed by that too. That's a really good one.
it wasn't like I
Good.
was just like almost putting one thing in. I had like loaded up her cart
Yeah.
and then I had to pick through and figure out what was mine and what was hers.
Yeah.
Anyway, we probably
I
should have
would
become friends
I
after
would
that.
definitely be embarrassed by that. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's really funny. That's a great one. Um, I'm really having trouble thinking of one.
Well, that one might be a hard one to think of right now. You can take some time on that and we'll circle back to that in the
It's
next
hard
Q&A for
because
you.
it says the past few weeks, and I've been housebound because I've had painters repainting the whole house. So I haven't even done much in the past few weeks outside of my home. And thankfully, nothing embarrassing happened with the painters that were in my house. Um,
All right.
I
Well,
really can't think of, I really can't think of a recent example at all. I can't even think of a good older example. So what, give me another question.
okay.
I'm so
Something will
sorry to
come and then
disappoint. If I think of one, if I
we'll
think
come
of
back to
one,
that.
I will share it during the next Q&A recording, and I'll
All right.
really,
Here's a really easy one.
okay.
Should I do that one? What's the first thing you put in your mouth in the morning?
How can that not be a toothbrush for everybody?
Okay, good. I'm glad
It's
you
not
said
for you,
toothbrush.
is it? It's
No,
not.
definitely not my toothbrush.
I have to wake up and brush my teeth. I cannot even
No,
imagine not.
no,
I
no, no,
walk
no.
straight to my sink and I brush my teeth.
Okay. Follow up to that then. Do you wet your toothbrush before you brush your teeth, or
Yes.
do you just
No,
dry?
I don't use a dry toothbrush. I wet it, I put toothpaste on it.
Okay.
And you drink coffee before you brush your teeth.
For sure. If I'm going, yeah, I drink water, a little coffee, probably have some breakfast, and then I brush my teeth when I'm getting
Kiss
done.
everybody goodbye.
Yeah, no,
I can't imagine.
no,
I can't imagine not
but I
brushing my teeth
would.
right when I wake up. It's first of all, it's just my habit. I don't even think about it. But I can't even imagine being comfortable not brushing my teeth right away. I brush my teeth a lot. Like, midday, I'll often run up and brush my teeth too. But yeah, I can't believe that. We should do a poll on that because one of us is
Yeah.
definitely crazy. We have to know which
I
one.
think anyone who puts a dry toothbrush in their mouth is crazy.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that. Why did you ask me
But
that
people
part?
do that
Do
because
they
people do
really?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's probably like a 50
You
50
know what
split.
I hate in the movies? You just reminded me of something I hate in the movies. Everything's so fake in the movies. Like, they never say goodbye after a phone call. They just hang up, like that's not realistic. You say goodbye to people when you're on the phone. They're like, they just hang up. But the other thing is, when people brush their teeth in movies, which is really pretty unnecessary, but that's how it is. They spit and they don't rinse their mouth. And I'm like, come on.
Oh,
Who
I've
brushes their
never noticed
teeth?
that.
Oh my gosh, it's in so many movies and TV shows. The people, they do like one spit. I don't know if they're faking it, but they brush, they spit, and then they walk away. And I'm just like, how do you not rinse your mouth after brushing your teeth? I don't understand it. I guess they don't really want to take it that far where the people are slurping water and spitting out the water. They just do this neat little spit. But it's like the concept is so gross to me that you don't rinse out after brushing. So very unrealistic. I'm a tough movie critic.
I would never notice that in a movie.
Yeah, it's like noticing if they're driving without a seatbelt or something. It's just those things you're just thinking, come on. Yeah. I really want to think of something embarrassing.
Well, we can reconvene.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to disappoint. I'm going to keep thinking about it.
You'll come up with something. There's got to be something.
Oh, well, I can tell you something I do all the time. I just thought of one, but
Okay.
I don't have a specific story. I can just tell you something I do all the time. See how I have my glasses on top of my head right now? I've been seen by many people near and dear to me that I'm running around looking for my glasses.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing.
Kinda. I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like that's just like a mom thing.
It's just an anybody thing. It's an anybody thing.
It's an anybody who wears glasses thing.
Yeah, like when you get so used to something that you feel like you don't. Yeah, I really will try to do better.
You'll come up with a good story, or maybe something will happen in the next couple of weeks.
Let's hope that's
not embarrassing.
Let's hope that's not how this.
A little embarrassing. It's not bad.
It's not.
You know, that makes for good life stories.
Thanks for the reassurance.
Share with the kids when you get home.
That's funny.
They get home.
Yeah, I can't think of one. All right. Well,
okay. That's
thank
it.
you. Thanks for the great questions, everyone.
As always, please continue to call in your questions to 802-438-3696 or 802-GET-DOWN. We love your questions. They're always so great. And don't forget to please review or rate the podcast. That's so helpful. If you love us, please leave us a 5-star review. It really makes a difference in how the podcast gets out to people. And lastly, don't forget, you can join us on Patreon or subscribe to Apple subscriptions to get ad-free extended Q&As and early release episodes.
See you next time.
Bye.